Hello and welcome back to Off Grid Style. I'm Nikki and I'm so glad to have you here. Today we are talking about the difference between urban preppers and rural preppers as far as where they go, what they have to deal with around them. That is what this whole video is about. Kind of a cool idea. So let's find out what the actual differences are between rural prepping and urban prepping. Obviously, where you decide to set up your survival base for an SHTF situation of any sort is going to significantly impact how you prepare and what your approach is going to be. Whether you're attempting to deal with the suburbs and the more urban environment or rural settings where there's not a whole lot around you, each type of setting will come with its own difficulties and its own challenges. So first we're going to discuss the urban prepper. And for the urban prepper, it's second nature, and even I still do this, to stock up on food and also stock up on gear by ordering online. It has the attraction and the niceness of getting things delivered directly to your home. It's easy. You can compare prices. You can order everything online and know that you're getting the best deal if you've done your research. Where the challenge arises for urban preppers is when an actual disaster, SHTF or whatever, happens, and suddenly those deliveries aren't coming anymore, and you now have to trek out to try to find food, water, all those other things. And it may be not only arduous and tiring, but also dangerous, because at the same time, you're going to have people who don't have any supplies out there looking for the same things you are. And they're not necessarily going to attempt to be lawful. They're going to loot, they're going to break into places, they're going to do all kinds of things that you might not necessarily consider yourself doing. And hey, while you're here, if you would do me a huge favor, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It tells YouTube that we're doing the right thing and we can do more of this for you. So let's talk about some urban prepping tips. So the first thing obviously you need to do is stockpile essentials. You should already be doing that anyway. I would imagine 99.9% of you watching this channel already have a stockpile of essential items. You need to be doing that at this point. This way, if supply chains break down, if things can't get into you because of issues happening in the urban areas, you still have a good supply to get you through for a while until things calm down out there. Building a prepper pantry is also something that is crucial to get you through whatever is going on. This is where you're going to stockpile those non-perishable food items. And the way I do it is I have a thing on my fridge, and it's a little dry erase board. As I take something from my prepper pantry, I write it on there, and then that new item goes to the back of my prepper's pantry. So I'm always constantly replacing. A survival garden. And yes, I understand in a lot of urban areas, this is not something you have a ton of room for, but you know already you can grow things in pots. I will also tell you that the hydroponic systems that you can buy to grow indoors work great. I tend to use them more for my herbs than food, but I have grown tomatoes and things like that in the hydroponic systems that you can bring indoors. And it works fine and everything tastes great. So now let's talk about some essential EDC or everyday carry items for urban preppers. And this is specific more towards the urban areas. Carrying a small backpack in urban environments is not considered questionable or suspicious. I will tell you that in more rural areas, carrying a backpack is a little bit more, what's going on there? So it's a good idea to go ahead and get yourself a very small backpack just to carry the EDC items in. It'll give you a little bit of extra space too. So it's almost like a mini MOLLE bag or a mini get home bag, if you will. You are going to want a steel water container. And I always forget if you want the double-walled one or the single-walled one, but one of them you can actually use and boil water with. So get yourself like a steel Yeti type cup and carry that with you with your water or whatever you drink during the day in it. You are going to want a knife. Obviously, you're going to want a knife that is legal to carry. Please keep this in mind. You do not want to be walking around with a machete. You want at least something that you can use in dire circumstances, but you don't want to have anything that's designed for assault. A little rechargeable flashlight. You can even purchase these to fit onto your keychain. You can attach it to that little mini backpack if you decide to get one of those. However you want to do it, you do you, but get yourself a little rechargeable flashlight. A power bank of some sort, and I have one of these in the car, and I keep it with me all the time, and the reason I do is because I was having issues with an electrical thing in my car, my little old lady, and that power bank would actually jumpstart the car. So it would give me about 5 or 6 jumps before it would die. So a good thing to have in the vehicle anyway, but try to have a power bank of some sort with you. They actually make little itty bitty small ones that are, negligible in size that will actually attach to your phone. A mask of some sort or a bandana. A bandana would be a great item as well, but some type of a mask to help your respirations should you encounter smoke, dust, any other particles. A multi-tool is also something you should be carrying. This could also encompass your knife. It could possibly also encompass your flashlight. A Bic lighter or waterproof matches. Also wrap some duct tape around that Bic lighter. That's always a good thing to do. And I even had somebody tell me in a comment that they wrap some fishing line underneath first and then do the duct tape around their lighter, which I thought was a great idea. Pen and paper. You may be able to find, I know they make tactical pieces of equipment that are kind of a self-defense tool that have a pen attachment, and they're also a flashlight. So there's a piece of equipment for you, perfect. It's real small. And the paper, you can even have little pieces of scratch paper, that you've torn into pieces and shove it in your wallet. Some extra cash. I always recommend carrying small bills. Do not carry a 50 or 100 and say, oh, cool, I've got some extra cash. Carry, maybe $20 in ones and then a couple fives, a couple tens, and a 20. Don't carry a whole lot of cash. Carry small denominations of it. And the self-defense tool, which goes back to what I just talked about that tactical piece of equipment that you can purchase. It's not very expensive. It's got a light. It's a self-defense tool. It will break glass if you need it to, all those kinds of things, and it's a pen. Now, let's discuss rural prepping. Living in a rural environment has a whole separate set of challenges for preppers. The first thing is you better have some good shoes because you may be walking. And while the availability of commercial goods might not be as prevalent, as an example, the closest store to our cabin is 15 miles away, natural resources become much more abundant. So while the rural prepper can still depend on online orders for their survival gear and things along those lines that they can't purchase nearby them, they still have abundant areas and resources like firewood, fruit, nuts, water, animals, all of those things that you don't really see in more urban environment. So what are the supplies that are needed for rural preppers? You will need a water filter. This is something that you need to have because, yes, you have abundant water around you, most likely, but you don't want to just drink it. So make sure you carry one of those little itty-bitty collapsible water filters. They're really cool. Sawyer makes one off the top of my head. We've got a bunch of them somewhere. Sawyer makes one. Definitely have that with you. And because you are in a more rural environment, it's not questioned as much as far as your knife is concerned. You can carry a bushcraft knife, and nobody's going to say a word to you. Not that you probably see a whole lot of people. I can tell you that we could go a month without seeing anybody when we are up at the cabin. You just don't run into people like you do in suburbs and urban areas. You are going to want to have a pair of tactical gloves, and there are a lot of different reasons for this, but off the top of my head, barbed wire. A lot of more rural places will put barbed wire up, especially to keep animals out, although I'm not a huge fan of that. I think just build a better fence works better, but that's just my own opinion. But yeah, so if you have to get through some barbed wire, if you have to get through densely wooded and thorny areas, the tactical gloves will help you out. Obviously, a ferro rod. Ferro rod is super easy to carry. You can get one that goes on a keychain or hooks to your belt. And this is something that you need to have because you're out in the wilderness and you can start a fire, unlike somebody who's in a more urban area may not have the supplies to start a fire. A map and a compass. You're in the woods. You're in a rural area. Maybe you have to go somewhere that you're not familiar with. So make sure that you have a paper map or a screenshot of a map that you can blow up on your phone and a compass and know how to use the compass. A folding saw. And you can get these where they fold down to about 5 inches or so. And they're great for exactly what you need them for, which is usually typically firewood. In a last resort, it's for building a shelter. A headlamp or flashlight. I have both. The headlamp is cool because it frees up both of your hands. And sometimes it is so pitch black that you need both of them, the headlamp and the flashlight, in order to see where you're going and what's in front of you. Two-way radios, I've said this before, if I'm up at the front of the property and my husband is towards the back of the property or in the house and something happens, God forbid, or we just need to communicate with each other, hey, I need your help, then the two-way radios come in super, super handy because there's no way, he's deaf as a doornail, he's never going to hear me hollering for him to come help me. So what are some of the survival skills for rural preppers that you really need to concentrate on knowing? Water sourcing, how to find water, and actually you should have already scoped out your area and know where all the closest water sources are. You can tap into nearby streams, and this gives you a more direct water source compared to your urban preppers. You also have to have some wildlife awareness. Living near wild areas, forest, woods, wilderness, whatever you want to call it, means that you have to be a lot more vigilant than your urban counterparts regarding wildlife, what kind of wildlife is in your area, what kind of things like snakes are in your area, how big the predators are. Do you have, bobcats? Do you have bears? These are all important things to know. So you do have to have knowledge of what type of animals and their behavior when you are dealing in rural prepping. There's also an overlap in skills between urban and rural prepper, and they're universal. They apply to both types of prepper. These include, of course, the priority of water, shelter, and food. But obviously, the method that you use to procure these items is probably going to be different based upon the urban versus rural environment. I hope you liked the video. I thought it was interesting, the dichotomy between urban and rural prepping and how many times I had to retake this video because I kept getting the two of them confused, even though I know what they both mean. But anyway, I hope you liked it, and I'd love to hear back from you. As far as I have actually had to think about this, but I don't think a lot of people have. The fact that in an urban environment, you have to think of things one way. In a rural environment, it's a whole different kettle of fish. So let me know what your thoughts are. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you again soon.